All right, gang, we're going to make the train body today. I promised you this video in class, so just in case you got a little bit behind when we were doing it in class, I'm going to do it again here, and you can have the option of pausing, rewinding, all you need to do in order to get this train body done. So I'm going to be bouncing back and forth. Let me hide this. All right, so I'm going to be bouncing back and forth between the train body and our part studio. So the first thing you need to do is create your part studio. If you haven't already done that, you're going to go into Onshape. Make sure you're in your NTI folder. I cannot grade anything unless it's in the NTI folder. So you should have already created your toy train project folder inside of your NTI folder. And then if you haven't already, you need to create a document and call it toy train. I've already done that. Most of you guys have already done it too because you did that during class today. Okay, so this is our part studio. This is how it's going to launch. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to hit Shift S to start a new sketch. We're going to choose our front work plane, and then we're going to swing around our front view cube or our view cube to the front view. All right, let's jump over here to the train body, the drawing. Sorry, had to reload it. So here we go. So first things first, I am going to draw the outline of my train body first. All right, so now the dimensions that I'm going to use are not fully going to match what is on this drawing because, as you can tell, there's a radius here of 0.1 that's telling you that fillet there is 0.1 inches, and that is going to affect this image or this measurement right here, okay, because this one is 0.1 as well, which means that this is really 2.5, not 2.437. It will end up being 2.437 once we add the fillets, but for the time being, when we're drawing it, we're going to draw it as 2.5. So 2.5 up and down, 2 inches across, another 2.5 or another 2.5 up, and then we'll add the arc at the top. So I'm going to grab my line tool by choosing the letter L on my keyboard, starting at my center point, and I'm going to go straight up that center line. Don't have to go far, just enough to get it started, and then I'm going to type in 2.5, and it's going to set my line. I'm going to choose my line tool again to get rid of it, and then I'm going to grab down here at the bottom. Make sure that your center point turns yellow to let you know that you are connecting the dots. Go straight across. I'm going to make that 2. I'm still in my line tool, so I'm going to go straight up until I get around 2.5, and then I will type it in, 2.5. Hit escape to get out of my line tool. I'm going to drag this down. Now what I want to do is I want to create the arch that goes across the top. So I'm going to hit the letter A to choose my center point arc. Excuse me, my 3-point arc. That's what we want, 3-point arc. And I'm going to choose this as my first point. I'm going to choose this as my second point, and I'm just going to drag it to right about there, hit escape, and now we've got our general shape, but I need to make sure that I'm exactly like my drawing. So this point here is my 3rd point. So I'm going to come back over to my train body diagram, and I'm going to look, and I'm going to be able to see that this center point is connected to my arc. Okay, and it tells me, according to this drawing, that that center point is 0.5 inches from the bottom of my train. So I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to choose the letter D on my keyboard, and I'm going to dimension from that center point to the bottom. I'm going to pull it out here to the right, and I'm going to tell it 0.5, and it is going to set it. And now my arc is the shape that I want it to be. We are done with this shape, so I'm going to finish my sketch. I'm going to go into isometric view, and then I am going to get rid of my work planes because I won't need them anymore. And I'm going to extrude, so I'm going to click extrude, and I'm going to click that. Now, if you paid attention just a minute ago, you would have noticed that the length of our train is 5.5 inches from front to back. So I'm going to tell it that I want it to extrude 5.5, and I want it to go this direction instead of coming towards me. So right here, I'm going to click this button here that says opposite direction, and it's going to send it backwards instead of forwards. This is the first direction. This is the direction I want it to go. So I'm going to click that, and then I'm going to click OK. And we are done with that part of our train body. So now it's time to start working on getting ready to build our steam part of the steam chamber. Okay, so we're going to click Part Studio again. I'm going to start a sketch on the front part of my train. And I'm going to click the front of my view cube to spin it around. And if you notice, there is a lot of material missing that we just drew. So we're going to cut this, and I'm just going to cut this part out, and then we're going to draw in our steam chamber. Okay, so I'm going to draw a line. I'm going to choose my line tool, and I'm just going to draw a line straight across from one side to the other. It doesn't matter where, because I'm going to dimension it anyway, so I'm going to hit escape. I'm going to look here, and I'm going to see that the height is 0.875. So if I zoom in here from the top or from the middle of my train here to the bottom, it's 0.875. That's what I want. So I'm going to come over here, click dimension, choose the line we just drew, choose that bottom line. When it turns yellow, come out here and 0.875. Now we're good to go. Hit finish sketch. I'm going to slide over here and send it into isometric, and I'm going to extrude this. And I'm going to, instead of add, I'm going to remove, but I need to know how much material to remove. So I'm going to come back over to my drawing. I'm going to slide up here, and I'm going to say, okay, 3.75 inches is how far it is from this front part of my train back to this wall. 3.75. So when I extrude, I'm going to tell it to cut away 3.75 inches of material. It's going to cut that back. I'm going to hit enter, and we are now starting to look like we have a train body. All right, so go back to isometric, come back over here, and it's time to build the steam chamber. Well, if I'm looking at my steam chamber, the first thing I'm noticing is it's a circle. Okay, but it's not just a regular circle. If you look at this, right now I'm given a radius. And remember, when we're drawing circles, we have to draw diameters. And so a diameter is equal to 2 times the radius. So if our radius is 0.75, then our diameter is going to be 1.5 inches. So we're going to draw a circle, but first we're going to start a sketch, and I'm going to choose the front of my train again. And then I'm going to click the front of my view cube to spin it around, and I'm going to draw a center point circle. And it doesn't matter where I draw it, because I'm going to tell it where to go anyway. So I'm just going to draw it and tell it to be 1.5 inches in diameter. And now I'm going to set up where I want it. So according to this, my center point of this circle is 1 inch from the side of my train. So I'm going to click my dimension key, and I'm going to go from the middle over to the side, and I'm going to come out and I'm going to tell it 1 inch, and it's going to automatically center that thing up for me. Now, how high does it need to be? Well, according to this, it's 1.375 inches from the bottom of my train. So again, I'm going to click my dimension tool, center point, bottom line, come over to the side, and 1.375. And I'm going to double check that because as I was typing it, yes, all right, so 1.375, that's what we want. All right, so once we've got that, we can click Finish Sketch because we are done drawing our circle. I'm going to spin it back around into isometric mode. And now I want to create my steam chamber. So I'm going to click Shift E for my extrude. I'm going to select that circle that we just created. I'm going to tell it to go opposite direction because I want it to come back and hit this wall, but I want it to stop at this wall. So instead of choosing blind, I'm going to tell it up to next. And it's going to get to that wall, and it's going to stop, and I'm going to hit OK. And now we have a pretty good looking train body so far. All right, so this next step is going to be the most, it's not complicated, but it could be the most confusing because if I simply, well, let's see, the next thing I want to do is I want to draw the hole for my smokestack. This is where my smokestack is going to be inserted. But if I come over here and I simply grab the top of my view cube and I tell it that I want to create a sketch on this surface right here, The problem is if I just take and spin this up a little bit, what you're going to notice is depending on where I click on this top, while it looks like a rectangle, I'm actually clicking at a different height depending on whether I go to the left or the right, because it's a cylinder, okay? It's not actually a rectangle. So I need to give myself a flat surface to draw on or to sketch on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an offset work plane. So I'm going to choose my plane tool from up here at the top. Then I'm going to come in and I'm going to click on this plane right here. Okay, this flat surface. And when I do, it's going to create this work plane, but I want to make sure that it is up to the top, and it is 1.25 inches to the top of my cylinder. Okay, so I'm going to click the checkbox. And now I need to make sure this plane is big enough that I can see it and grab it and get on, make sure my sketch is on there. So I'm going to choose my work plane over here, plane 1. I'm going to choose it from my origin panel. And I'm going to come over and I'm going to grab that corner and I'm just going to drag it out. And I'm going to do it again down here until I get a nice big orange square. All right, and that's going to allow me to make sure that I select the plane that I want when I create my sketch. So I've got my work plane created. I'm going to click Shift S. I'm going to click on that work plane and I'm going to flip over to the top view. Now I'm ready to draw that circle for my smokestack. And I can look and I can see that the diameter of that smokestack is 0.5 inches. So I'm going to click C for my center point circle, and I'm just going to drag it and 0.5. Perfect. Now I need to dimension it and put it to where I want it to be. All right, so I know from here that it is 1 inch from the side and 0.875 inches from the front of the train. So I'll start with the 0.875 because it's going to be the hardest for me to remember. So I'm going to dimension it from there to the front is 0.875. And from that center point over all the way to the side of my train is going to be 1 inch. And it is completely centered up. It's exactly where I want it. I'm going to hit my check mark, and then I'm going to send it into isometric mode. I'm going to extrude it down inside. I'm going to tell it to remove, and you're going to remove 0.25 inches of material. Now, that's the one thing on the dimension drawing that I was not able to show you. I know how to do it in Inventor. I haven't figured it out in Onshape yet, so that's why I'm giving you that dimension. So we have that done. It's where we want it. So now we're going to make that view cube, or make that work plane invisible, so that it's not in the way anymore. And we need to cut 3 more holes. All right, we're going to cut these 2 holes in the side, and then we're going to cut this hole in the back. So we'll start with these 2 holes in the side, and we can tell that the diameter of both of these holes is 0.25 inches. So I'm going to grab over here and I will start a sketch, Shift S, and I'm going to start it on the side of my train, flip around to the right side, zoom it out a little bit so I can see what I'm doing, and I'm going to draw 2 circles. All right, 0.25 inches. Doesn't matter where, because we're going to tell them where to go anyway. So 0.25, 0.25. Looking back at our train body diagram, I can see that there's a center line running between these 2 circles, and that tells me that they are both 0.5 inches from the bottom of the train. So I'll come over here, hit my dimension key, and grab that, go to the bottom of the train, and 0.5. Same thing with this one back here to the bottom of the train, 0.5 inches. And I look at my train body one more time, and I recognize that this front circle is 1 inch from the front, and the back circle is 1 inch from the back. So we staying with our dimension tool. Front circle to the front of the train, 1 inch. Same thing on the back. Back circle to the back of the train, 1 inch. And we're done. Now let's go ahead, we'll go ahead and draw this circle up here as well, because it's going to go all the way through. So let's look at our train body one more time. And if you notice, we have a radius for this circle. And the reason is because it's not a complete circle. Okay, so when we have a radius and we're drawing a circle, we're going to double this. So a radius, in order to turn it into a diameter, you double it. So instead of 0.25, it's actually going to be 0.5. So I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to draw one more circle up here, and I'm going to call it 0.5. And that's perfect. Now, I want you to notice one more thing, and that is it's not just a circle, okay? It extends all the way out. So the way that we're going to cut out the rest of this material is we're going to draw a couple of lines. So I'm going to choose my line tool, and I'm just going to draw a line up here. As long as it's a straight line, it doesn't matter how long it is or anything else. So I'm going to draw a line above and a line below. They're going to be nice and straight. You're going to notice that they have a dashed mark. That means that they're straight lines. All right. Now we're going to use our tangent tool just like we did when we were building our pear cams. I'm going to hit the letter T. I'm going to select my top line. I'm going to select the outside of my circle, and it's going to move. Then I'm going to select my bottom line and the outside of my circle. All right. So we're getting to where we want to be, but I need to make sure that my circle is in the right spot. So let's look back at our train body diagram. And according to this, the center point of my circle is, let's see, it is 0.25 inches in from the back and 1.75 inches up from the bottom. So grab my dimension tool, and from here to the back of the train was 0.25 inches. And from here to the bottom of the train was 1.75 inches. Now I'm ready to trim this up and start extruding. So I'm going to choose my trim tool by clicking the letter M, and I'm going to get rid of this line and this line because I don't need those. And I'm going to get rid of this half of the circle because I'm getting rid of all of this material, not just the circle part. These two lines, I'm going to leave them alone because they're going to just go away here in just a second. So I'm done. Click Finish Sketch. Throw it into my isometric mode. All right, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit, and now it's time to start extruding. So I'm going to click Shift E, and I'm going to choose this piece. I'm going to choose this circle and this circle. And if you notice it's trying to add material to all of them, I'm going to tell it to remove. And I'm going to tell it to go all the way through. And by doing so, it cuts a hole all the way through my part, which is exactly what I want. And I'm going to hit that checkbox, and my train body is created. You have officially created your train body. Now, there's a couple more steps that we need to do. First of all, one of the things we want to do is we want to be able to 3D print these. Okay, so our 3D printers use a material called PLA plastic. Okay, so we have to tell our model what it's made of. And the way we do that is we come over here to part number 1. We click on it. It's going to highlight our whole part yellow to tell us that we have selected it. We're going to right click on part number 1 and choose Assign Material. Okay, when you assign the material, it's going to ask you what kind of material you want. Right now it's got none applied to it, so we're going to click on that drop box, and we are going to scroll down until we come to PLA. All right, keep going, PLA. We're going to select that. We have PLA now, and it tells us our density is 0.045 pounds per inch cubed. Now, that doesn't mean a whole lot to you, but that does mean stuff to the computer and to the 3D printer. So we click the checkbox, and what you'll notice is it really doesn't change a thing about your part. Okay, all that did was change some stuff in the background in the programming. The next thing you want to do is we want to get this to the color. Actually, we're not going to change the color yet. We're going to add one more detail. So over here on my train body that I created, what I want you to notice is there are no sharp edges. Well, there's one sharp edge, and it's right here for my smokestack, but everything else has been smoothed out. Okay, and so the last step that you're going to do before changing the color is you're going to come in and you're going to add some fillets. Okay, so your fillet tool is right up here. You can click on it or you can click Shift F. When you do, it's going to open your fillet menu and you want to change this from 0.2 to 0.1. So I'm going to type in 0.1 and I'm going to hit enter. Now, I'm going to do this systematically. So I'm going to do all of one side and then I'm going to flip around and do all of another side. Okay, so on and so forth. All right, so making sure that I have 0.1, I'm going to start with the front of my train. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. I'll grab this corner, I'll click it, and it's going to automatically fillet it. Then I'm going to grab this corner, and it's going to fillet that. Then I'm going to spin it around. Okay, I'll grab this bottom corner. It's going to fillet that. Same thing on this side. Click it. It's going to fillet. And then I'll add one more right here. All right, so now I have Now I have filleted all of that. Now I'm going to do this arch right here. So I click it and it's going to give me a nice round front edge. The front of my train is done. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit so I can see it. I like the way the front edge looks. So I'm going to hit the check box. Now I'm going to move to the side. Okay, so I will start by doing this side here. So I'll choose my fillet tool again, Shift F, double check that I still have it at 0.1, and I'm going to start doing my edges. Okay, you don't want to get the whole thing. If I click right here, it's going to mess everything up. So I want to make sure that I'm only selecting one edge at a time. So I'll choose this one first, then I'll flip it up just a little bit so I can see the bottom edge, and I will grab it. Click, that's 2, and you notice every time I click something, it adds it to my fillet. Okay, that way if I ever have to go back and make changes, I can make changes according to what I did. And so I'll be very meticulous in how I do it. So now I'll choose this corner, and then I'll choose this corner. And you're going to go around, and you don't have to click the same corners in the same order as I do, but you do want to get all of your corners. And now watch this. When I get here, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I'm going to click this right here, and it's going to automatically do the entire thing. That was nice and handy. Okay, so I like that. This side is looking really good, but the last thing I'll do, I'll go ahead and do these 2 wheels. All right, so I've got this whole side done and my wheels. I'll hit the check box. Now I've got, now I've got my front side and this side over here. So I'm going to spin around and I'll do this side next. All right, so again, choose your fillet tool, Shift F, double check that it's 0.1 in diameter. As soon as you've got that, then you can start going in and doing your filleting. So I'm going to start with this corner again, and then I'll spin it up a little bit and grab this bottom corner, spin it around. Now the way that I'm spinning this around is I'm using my right button on my mouse. I click it and hold, and that allows me to spin my part. So I'll choose this one, this one, this one. I'll spin around to make sure that I'm getting this front right here. And then I'm going to spin around. I'm going to, spin around and zoom in so that I can see that I'm grabbing this corner here, and it's going to fillet that whole edge. And I can zoom back out, and now I can see that I've got the right side, the left side, and the front. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the top. I'm going to go ahead and do this part up here. Okay, so choose my fillet tool again, Shift F, change it to 0.1, and get this edge here, spin it around, get this edge here, spin it one more time, make sure that I'm getting this bottom edge, so I'll click that. And I want to get this edge because I haven't gotten it yet, and I haven't gotten this bottom corner, so I'll get it. So now I've got this whole front, whole top underneath, and I'll go ahead, I should have done this earlier, I'll go ahead and grab this wheel and this wheel. And when I hit the checkbox, I now have it almost fully filletted. The only thing that I haven't done yet is I haven't done this corner here. I haven't done the back corner or this corner over here. So we'll go ahead and do that now. And you're going to see it kind of changes everything just a little bit. Okay, so let me center this up a little bit. All right, Shift F, change it to 0.1. And I'm going to slide in here. I'll grab this corner, zoom out, come back here, and I'm just going to grab that right there, spin it around a little bit. You notice that went all the way around. And now I'll grab this corner right here, and it fillets that nice. So now I have nice smooth edges everywhere. Okay, now I do see one edge that it didn't quite get it. So what I'll do is I'll zoom in right here, and if you notice, still have kind of a sharp edge here. So I'm going to grab this, I'll click right here, and it's going to fillet that whole corner. I'll double check the other side, and it did the exact same thing. So I'll zoom in again, I'll click the same edge, and it's going to go all the way across and give me a nice smooth edge. And now, click my finish sketch, and I will spin this around, make sure I didn't miss any of my edges. And this looks really nice. So the last step is we're going to change the appearance. I do not want to fillet this right here because we're going to have an insert there that is that I don't want it to rattle around. My axles, when they go through here, they're going to cover up those holes. So that's why we're not putting anything there. We can go ahead and fillet those edges. All right, so let's change the appearance. You click the appearance panel over here. It's going to pop out. You got this nice blue color. You can change this to whatever color you want your train to be. All right, depending on who you're creating it for. I went with kind of a normal train color, kind of a blackish gray when I created mine. It's going to give it a nice shiny tint to it. Close that, put it in isometric. The last thing you want to do is right click down here on your Part Studio. Make sure that you name this and call it Train Body. And I'll call mine Train Body 3 because I've already created this a few times. All right, you just call yours Train Body, hit enter, and it is saved. And now I can go in and I can view and make sure that everything is correct. I can go in and double check your parameters. And as long as it's in that NTI or in your toy train folder and that's in your NTI folder, I can go in there and give you credit for creating this. So that is how we create the toy train body. So like I said, pause, rewind, do it over as many times as you need to do to get it right. And tomorrow we will jump into creating the wheels. Hope you enjoyed this.